Yeah.
All right, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order and start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks again for coming out. Nancy is here. She's on a city phone call. She'll be in as soon as she's done. We'll start with the approval of the agenda, number one. We're going to remove F1, the committee report from the planning commission. All three of those items will be removed and put to the next meeting. Anything else, Dan? Anything?
I don't have anything.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, hearing none. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Thanks, Dwayne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sonny, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Linda? Consent agenda? Everything's in your packet. Any questions on that? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have a visitor to the council tonight, Liza Danabauer. And Liza's here with David John Associates. She's helping us with our city administrator search. And come on up to the podium and it's yours.
Good evening, Mayor McKern and members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. And yes, I'm here to walk you through the next step in finding your next administrator. So just as a reminder before we get into this, the names and the identities of your semifinalists are considered confidential, so we will want to refer to our candidates tonight with the number that's been assigned to each of them. And also just to make a general statement, we also don't want to use any identifying characteristics as well, so nothing about where this, maybe the community that they're working in or organization, where they currently are lived, because that could potentially identify who that candidate is. So the next step is really quite basic, so if you don't have any questions for me, I can lead you through the process of selecting your finalists. So any questions before we do that? All right, so just for information for the public's sake, a week ago the council received an email with an email link to each of the semifinalists that were chosen that could possibly be a good fit for this position. So in the comfort of their home, they had access to cover letters, resumes, responses to video interviews, work personality index, where they were able to see the strengths of their personality traits and how they would relate to this field. And then through that, then they were able to select who they feel might be a good fit, and then we'll help them whittle that down and determine who we want to invite to interviews today. So I'm going to pass out a ballot. And again, when you write down your candidates, please refer to them by number. And then I will take them back and we will read the, I have possibly another copy for you here, unless you have notes.
No.
Thank you.
So I'll read the votes out loud, and then we'll be able to determine together who received the most votes. Those would be the ones invited for interviews, and then we can kind of determine from there where the logical cutoff point is. I normally do recommend inviting anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 candidates, and the reason being for that is usually by the time we get to interview day, 1 or 2 may drop out from the process, whether they've accepted a position elsewhere, they may have had a change of heart or some other personal reason. Ballot number 1, we have a vote for candidate number 7, candidate number 6, and candidate number 9. Second ballot, we have a vote for candidate number 6, number 5, and number 2. Next ballot, we have a vote for candidate number 3, candidate number 1, and candidate number 10, with some additional votes added for others, which I have not read out loud, but we can refer to those later if interested. Next ballot, candidate number 7, candidate number 5, and candidate number 8. And then the last ballot, we have a vote for candidate number 6, candidate number 8, and candidate number 2. So the final tally, we have 1 vote for candidate number 1, 2 for candidate number 2, 1 vote for candidate number 3, no votes for candidate number 4, 2 for candidate number 5, 3 votes for candidate number 6, 2 votes for candidate number 7, 2 votes for candidate number 8, 1 vote for candidate number 9, and 1 vote for candidate number 10. So as of right now, your top getting votes are candidate number 2 with 2 votes, 5 with 2 votes, 6 with 3 votes, 7 with 2 votes, and 8 with 2 votes. That gives you 5 candidates with the top getting votes. So now it's up for discussion. Is this a reasonable number of candidates, or are these the ones that you want to interview on the interview days?
So, the House Council feels, is 5 a good number?
I think 5 is a good number.
Yeah.
For the reasons that you stated in some of your guidance memos, that some of these might drop out between now and then.
And we don't wanna get too many, cause it would be like these 10.
Sure.
It's just overbearing.
Overwhelming.
Well, we have kind of a line then. Those that got 2 or 3 votes, there's 5.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay. So, at the end of all of our to-do items today, I'll have you make a motion just inviting those 5 candidates then for interviews. Okay, so then the next step on the process is just to help me design what you want your interview day or days to look. They can, as I mentioned, just depending on how involved you want members of your council and your staff and yourselves to be, that process can lead up to 2 days, or it can be at 1 day. So I did leave some ideas in your memo. Are there any of those items that stand out to you that you feel are really important?
I think having the candidates to town for the tour, obviously. How does everybody feel about the actual interview process? Is that something that the entire, does everybody have the time marked off to be available? Do everybody use those 2 days?
If we could do it in 1 day, I could have a whole day, but I can't do 2.
Yeah.
And there are some of those steps where council does not need to be a part of that. So, for instance, if you have some type of staff involvement, that could really be with staff. Of course, you are invited, those who can make it are there to make your observations, but I would receive feedback from staff of which would be shared with you as council. The community meet and greet, although not required, it is nice again to be there so you can observe the interactions that are going on. Again, I will receive feedback from the public, which would be shared with you. So, I realize that it can be kind of taxing on your account or on your schedule, but there is some flexibility in there. The only part that would be really critical for you to be a part of is that full panel interview where you all sit together and interview each of the candidates.
As far as a community meet and greet, what's your experience on that in the past? Now, just on the 13th, that Wednesday, we have, I was looking at some of the meetings around town. There's a general Chamber of Commerce meeting that day.
Sure.
Would that be a meet and greet that would be?
That could be a opportunity to piggyback off of. That would be wonderful because then you would already have your invitee list kind of already. So we bring all the candidates, they're all in one room together. You open it to the public, sometimes by offering some type of refreshment, and a cookie can sometimes bring in a few people, but it is very informal. The members of the public, I greet them, I kind of introduce them to each of the candidates, and then they are free to move throughout the room, meet each of the candidates, ask any questions that they desire, and then at the end of that time, then they fill out a feedback form before they leave. So they can spend as much or as little time with each of the candidates.
Anybody have any? I just like what Lonnie says, 1 day of interviews. Works for me. 2 days is too much.
So how much time do you take for the interview panel for the council as a whole? We have 5 candidates.
Yep. So if all 5 are to show, it does get to be quite lengthy and you will be exhausted by the end, but you'll spend 45 minutes, or each candidate gets up to 45 minutes to answer and ask questions. So if 1 or 2 drop out, that does shorten your day. I do usually allow for a 5-minute break so you can get up, walk around, if you need to, and then you come right back here and we can move to the next interview. So it can be a long afternoon, and then by done with your full panel interviews, that's when I share the feedback from any of the events that any other events that you've held throughout the day, and then you're ready to move into making your decision. So with a city tour, we can hold that first thing in the morning, your public meet and greet. What time is the change in meeting, do you know?
11:30 is when,
Perfect.
11:30 to 1 is the meeting.
Okay, so then you could get started into your interviews as early as 1:15 if everybody can get back here, and then just make it through the afternoon, and then that evening you make your decision. So your city tour, that again, it just depends on who your tour guide is. If you have a really excited community cheerleader, that can take an hour and a half. You can try and cut it to 45 minutes to an hour and just really show the high points of town. So you could start that at 10:30, then your public meet and greet from 11:30 to 1, and
You're gonna be doing this without me, because I'm gonna be in California,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay.
I think you can change your plans.
Yeah. I'm gonna be on my way back on the 13th, so it all depends on my connections, on whether my timing. Obviously I wanna try to get here for the council meeting, but
Sure.
the individual stuff may be tricky.
Okay.
So we're talking the 13th for the
13th
interviews.
is, yep, so we could plan that for the 13th.
And then come right into the council meeting as soon as we're done.
Cause I'll need to check with the chamber, make sure what time we have with them. It might be, hey, 11:30 to 12 is the meet and greet, and then they'll go on with their meeting at noon, and candidates can stick around for it, or they can prepare for their interviews at 1:15.
sure.
So I can email you tomorrow morning on that.
Okay. It's a half hour for everybody to meet by, that is,
Yeah, or I'll see what I can get from them.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, then we can do something else somewhere else.
okay.
Okay, so as far as who, we can find someone to do the tour, 5 people. We'll find somebody to do that.
Sounds great, we don't need to make that decision tonight, and I'll obviously email the schedule to you so you can take a look at it, and then if I don't hear any objections, that's the schedule I will roll out to the finalists so that they can start preparing for that day as well. Cause I've asked them ahead of time to reserve the 2 days, so.
Okay.
Okay. So I heard city tour, public meet and greet, individual interviews, and decision. Alright. Wonderful. Last, bit of, discussion is for the council just to consider whether they wanna provide some type of travel reimbursement to the candidate. So first of all, no council is alike, and I'll respond to this question differently. So first of all, the question is yes or no, and then if it's yes, then how do you want that to look? I've noted here, we do have 2 of your finalists who are traveling over 150 miles, so sometimes that's a decision make or break for some councils.
Any opinions, maybe on that, Brian?
My opinion is, if they're interviewing for this, they already know they're coming. If they're looking from a distance, I would think they would cover themselves. I mean, if I'm out interviewing in a job, nobody's covering me to come. That's just my opinion.
And we are giving them an incentive to move here within the package.
Mm-hmm.
So we are tentatively giving them something if everything works, right? Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never had an employer
Neither
offer
have I.
any sort of travel expense for an interview.
Mr. HR?
I'm more concerned about relocation expenses than I am.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's part of the
I am on
negotiation.
travel,
Yes.
yeah.
If someone's offered the position,
Yeah.
and that's.
Travel
I think we get
expense is gonna be relatively minute compared to potential relocation expenses.
Sure. I agree.
I guess we're gonna go with no on that.
Right, heard it loud and clear.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
When we do the interview in person, do you have like a format sheet or something, a suggestion sheet, or?
Yes, so I will draft interview questions. I will also email that out with a schedule and have you take a look at it. Or if ahead of time, if you already know you have a question or two that you'd like, feel free to share that with me and I'll make sure I get it into my list of interview questions.
Do we have to stick to that format, or if something comes up, can we alter, or?
So yes, there is an opportunity to alter. Yes, we stick to the script. The way that you can divvy off the script is if perhaps you don't feel that they answered the question in a complete manner, or maybe they just missed the mark, you can ask maybe for them to further expand. Or perhaps you've heard them mention something in their answer and you said, you know, I heard that you have an interest in golf, why don't you tell me more about that? That's how you can stray away from
Okay.
it. But you have to ask the same question of every candidate.
Okay.
But if there is something that you decide as a council you want to change a question, right before we go into interviews, we'll do one last review, and if anybody wants to add a question like what's your favorite book to read, then we'll add that to every single one of the interview list of
So
interview
as long as
questions.
every candidate is asked the same questions, we're good.
Correct.
As long as they're legal and not improper.
Yep.
Yep. All right. If that's it, just a reminder, 1 week before interviews, you'll receive an email with links attached to it, similar to what you just received this last week. So again, you'll have access to background information, their intellectual profile, which measures their verbal, reasoning skills, mathematics skills, and then their personal references. And then you'll still have access to all the other information you've had privy to as well. I think the only last thing I need from you then is just a motion authorizing that candidates number 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are to be invited for interviews.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Then the only question that I had following up on something that you said, as far as being provided personal references and things, who checks the references?
So I do that. I ask for current and former supervisors, and I have a very deep involved it's usually a 30 to 40 minute conversation where I ask about work role and responsibilities, management style, conflict resolution style, how do they respond to critique, criticism, strengths, development needed areas. We go into it, and then I'll put that into a narrative, and that'll be forwarded to you all for your review.
Do you ask my favorite question of, would you hire this person back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, you bet.
The background check, do you guys do that too?
We do that. It's pretty high level. It's not like a what your police department would go through for their backgrounding, but we check and make sure they don't have a criminal history. We look at their credit history. Do they have an eligible driving license? We do verify dates of employment and education to make sure that all comes through. Now, if we spot any red flags, we do have the candidate provide a personal statement that is shared with you as well, so that they can explain maybe why that red flag is there and maybe what they've learned from it or the reason or the cause of it. So that'll all be included.
Anything else for last night?
The names are considered public, the finalists, as of right now, but I do like to contact all semifinalists and let them know where they stand in the process. I understand you had a member of your media that was interested in the information, so I'm completely, I can do some type of press release or summary of each of the finalists that are gonna be interviewed.
Perfect. If you do that, and you just forward it to me, and I can get them, they were fine, so tomorrow they understood that, so.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Travel safe on your way home. Okay, mayor's report. So November 13th is our date. Everybody will be here except Dwayne.
I'll try to get here. Yeah.
As far as anything else, everything is still ongoing with the projects we've been working on in the past, and there's really no new update tonight that I'm aware of as far as any of the I&I reduction.
No, we're just getting kind of our things together. We're gonna be rolling all that here shortly. Some of, not necessarily the private side with the property owners, some of the public stuff we have been working on with public works staff, but on the private side is gonna be coming here shortly, so.
And I think the funds are just gonna be released from the state on the disaster stuff here, so, yep. I did talk with Karen Charbonnet with Semcra, signed a couple documents on that environmental study that they were conducting for the funds to be released for the Small Cities Development Grant, and she's expecting November, I believe it was 1st or 4th is when they're expecting something to be breaking loose there, so that's progressing nicely. Other than that, no, okay. On to engineers report.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. We got a lot of things in the council packet tonight, but I'll keep it kind of simple here and kind of summarize what we're looking at and keep it kind of at a high level. Ultimately, asking for your consideration to approve a resolution authorizing submittal of a grant application for MnDOT Local Partnership Program tonight. I'll start first and foremost with the item J1A there, and that is MnDOT's letter that went out to all the District 6 engineers, which is in southeast Minnesota. This is a funding program within MnDOT. MnDOT has a lot of funding programs. We've received some funds from Trunk Highway 57 reconstruction we're working on now, 16th Street going east out of town, our Safe Routes to School, temporary project we built, and then also the other TAP grant that Mr. Egler and I solicited from MnDOT we got for some of the other improvements and trail improvements that we're going to be building in 2021. So this is just another one of those programs that we can ultimately apply for MnDOT, so I've been working on that, and that's what we're going to be discussing here tonight. So this funding specifically is work that's only on the Trunk Highway system. So what we're going to be asking for tonight, if you proceed, is $1.3 million from MnDOT to construct the roundabout at Highway 57 and 16th Street. With that said, included also in the submittal is going to be the extension of 16th Street to the west of that roundabout, intersection of 57 over to County 21 and the dump road there. Why would we be asking for this? It's obviously going to be a new roadway. Those roadways are going to be expensive. We'll go over the cost here in a bit. This is what I view as the city's next big transportation project in the city. We saw it in the comp plan with everybody thumbing up, thumbing down 16th Street and kind of the northwest part of town not having a connection. That's why we feel it's very important here. So with that said, the total project cost, and I'll jump to the next item, two things. One is I printed off a little map here that we can kind of walk through here, and then there also is a letter that is from the city to MnDOT, ultimately kind of summarizing the project, so I'll kind of talk on both of those there. So what we're looking at proposing tonight, you see in the upper right-hand corner there, there's actually 5 schedules. We broke that up for kind of our discussion purposes in the feasibility report here. We are ultimately looking at constructing Schedule 1, which is the roundabout on the east end there, that purple color. Schedule 2 and Schedule 3, which is 16th Street west over to, again, the dump road or County 21. That is in the application, or what I feel we should apply for. Schedule 4, kind of that North Service Street to provide some access to some adjacent properties, is not in the application, something that we maybe can consider if we want to bring it in at a future date. And then also Schedule 5, which is a short little utility extension there to provide some sanitary sewer for the businesses and the homes that are just west side of 57 there. They're not currently on the city sanitary sewer system. That might be something that either happens with or without this project. I don't think that's real critical for our application tonight, so I'm kind of leaving it out of the discussion with MnDOT. So cost-wise, you can, in the feasibility report, if we get in the weeds a little bit, we have broken down the cost again per schedule. Schedule 1, the roundabout, again that purple area to the right-hand side of the paper there, that's about $2 million. Schedule 2 and 3 is an additional $2 million, so we're looking at about a $4 million project in total. So that's what we'd be looking at for a total project cost. We're projecting construction cost out till 2022, 2023, because that's if we are awarded funds, that's when we would be likely constructing this road. More than likely be pushing for 2023. We're going to be tearing up 57 in Casson in 2021. Sounds like Manorville is going to be 2022, right in front of the Hubble House, so that's going to be tore up in 2022. And here we are in 2023, maybe tearing up 57 again to build a roundabout. So that's probably the schedule that I think I'm going to be pushing for MnDOT. It could be a possibility we maybe tear up Manorville and 16th Street here in Casson in the same year, but we'll work through that if we can get some money here. So how do we pay? If we are looking at a $4 million project, 1.3 comes from MnDOT for the roundabout. That 2.7 million in that letter again, the MnDOT here says that would come from our MSAS and local funds, to fund the entire $4 million project. So just diving in a little bit on what municipal state aid funds are, that's money that we receive every year from MnDOT to use on our MSAS system. We have currently about $1 million in the bank. We receive about $250,000 that is allocated to future construction on our system every year. So we'll be about $1.5 million by the time 2022, 2023 comes, and we're looking at this project. And we also are capped about that same amount. MnDOT says we're giving you cities money, about $90 million a year goes into cities similar to Casson and bigger. We want you guys to spend it. So if we hit that 1.5 million mark, we have to do something, otherwise we're gonna get dinged on our funding and not receive some of that funding. So with that said, we can also borrow ahead 5 years. If we take 5 years times the $300,000 we receive, that's another 1.5 million. So in theory, we could have $300 million in our MnDOT bank waiting to be spent on our municipal state aid system. So that gets to us our 2.7. We'd be right in that number, depending on how we work our maintenance costs, that we can work into that number. Now with that said, all of this work cannot be funded, just the way the funding works out with the system. Some of the right-of-way costs, utility relocation, some of the front-end engineering can't be covered. So there may be $300,000 that really we can't fund per se with this project, is a rough number that I'm looking at. But my thought here is if we could get the $4 million, you know, the city would have some capital cost or budgeting cost that would be above and beyond the solicitation from MnDOT, the 1.3 plus the 2.7-ish that would come out of our municipal state aid system. With that said, I won't really get into the assessments or development agreement. This extension of roadway could be viewed, and we'd be recommending to approach some of the developable area out there to look at a development agreement or assessing a portion of this cost of the roadway to those projects. That is shown in the comprehensive plan as a future growth area for commercial opportunities, and there's been some discussions with the current owner and some other development opportunities that have been looking in kind of this area. I don't want to get into that too much, but I think it's going to be a growth area in the city in the future. So that's kind of the big picture reasons why we're bringing this forward tonight. Again, why would we do it? I feel that all the planning we've done to this point is important, and that ultimately is the decision tonight that we're asking the council to consider the resolution. In the council packet is a couple other things. There's a functional classification map, a regional transportation map. I don't know if we want to talk about those. They're just showing figures to MnDOT that is really showing why this is important to the city. The functional classification map is the Federal Highway Administration has a classification of all their highways that just shows how this section of roadway fits with the federal classification system and kind of connects Trunk Highway 57 over to County 21. In addition to that, we have a regional transportation map that is actually a map the city has that shows where past planning has shown where we feel that there's regional collector arterial level streets that kind of gives us a robust transportation network. The two figures there. We do have a feasibility report in the project that ultimately the high level costs that I just went over are included in there. So it kind of breaks down what we're actually proposing to do. The roundabout is a single lane roundabout, probably pretty similar to what you've seen kind of being built on MnDOT trunk highways. I think 75th Street, 63 North, north of Rochester. They built some over in Eota. There's one going into Wanamingo, I think, next year at Highway 60 and 57. So they're kind of popping up. It's going to have that single lane roundabout feel. Schedule 2 and 3 is our 16th Street going to the west. The cost numbers we have now, I've kind of shown a narrower street than the 16th Street going east. My thinking behind that, or the reason why we showed it kind of narrower, one, obviously cost, narrow roads are less expensive to build. I just don't see a lot of parking along that corridor. I don't see a lot of people parking to go to the dump, or parking to kind of go to the vacant land there. And if there's any development south of 16th Street, they would be controlled access, and then we'd be getting off on 16th Street. But I just wanted to make you aware that that is going to be proposed as a narrower road. We also have a trail shown along the north side of 16th Street. That's been shown on our comprehensive plan to be a critical connection for the city to connect the Sunset and Sunrise Trail in the city of Casson. That's really going to give us a nice loop going in and out of Manorville, either along the dump road or kind of through the Casson Meadows subdivision up by the wastewater treatment plant. So that's going to kind of close that loop. All those costs are in what we're proposing to do. And then the last item we have is an ICE report, which is basically a transportation study that looks at the intersection to justify the roundabout. We looked at a four-way stop, which is probably not gonna happen with Highway 57, a signalized intersection stoplight, which could still be a possibility. Some of the details we'd have to work out with MnDOT. I think the city's direction from a roundabout would be what we'd be kind of pushing MnDOT for, and what the city's desire would be there to slow some of that traffic down with the school and also the trail crossing there, with the assumption it's gonna be a pretty heavily used trail there. So I think that is the right recommendation there, what we're basically recommending in the report. With that said, I'll happy to answer any questions. Again, looking at the resolution ultimately authorizing city staff to submit this application to MnDOT.
Anything, Dan?
No.
Lynn?
No, it's part of the comprehensive plan, it's a major component of the safe routes to school. So, yeah, no, I don't have any condition, I think it's something we can at least attempt to move forward on.
Let's go for it. Yeah, it can't hurt to apply for the grant. If we don't get the grant, then we can go to Plan B, but.
Yeah, and I will share a little bit of information. Obviously, I've been talking to MnDOT, kind of drumming this up, and we've been in discussions in previous years, and I finally brought it forward and said, hey, I know you guys have this LPP solicitation out, is this the right fit? And I said, well, we had 1.3 million a year, we wanted more smaller projects like turn lanes and this and that, and I said, well, City of Castle's ready, we've already bought a local house that we're gonna be tearing down, we're getting right away, we got some things in the hopper with development. And I said, well, you guys gotta submit something at some time, so go ahead and submit, and we'll start the discussion and see how funding works out. So I'm a little less optimistic on this funding compared to our 16th Street or 57, but I think we just need to start the discussion with MnDOT and getting kind of their funds to the table, and obviously we have our MSAS funds to work through, so. I actually had a meeting or a conference this last couple days with the district engineer, and he thought it was a good application, so ultimately recommending it to move forward, so.
Okay.
Do we copy our local legislatures on it?
Probably not on this. Let me give that some more thought. I don't know if this is high profile enough, but let me give that some thought.
Can't hurt. Yeah,
This,
I know Dave Senjum has more than once commented on Highway 57 when he comes down from the Capitol, so.
Mm-hmm.
it probably won't hurt, yeah, once we get the application, I'll send it to the mayor, and if that's the direction the mayor can send it on, I guess it probably best come from you.
Can't hurt.
Yeah, I do, yeah, maybe.
Alright, anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mel. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
That's it, thank you.
Thanks, Brandon, appreciate it.
Thank you, Brandon.
Personnel, there's a memo in there from, the police chief regarding the personnel requests in the budget that Dwayne had asked for clarification, so any questions on that, but, we'll just include that with part of our budget discussions the next time. Next, the attorney's report. We're gonna go to closed session for this, for the Wilker litigation update. It will not be recorded. So what this means, we're gonna close the meeting, so we have to ask everybody to leave for a few minutes. We're gonna discuss the issue. We'll open the meeting back up and invite you back in. So we'll clear the room for a few minutes.
Thank you, Brandon.
Mike's up. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
We're counting on you.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Not on this.
Part of that resolution